start recording, and I will share LMMS. So there we go. Okay, so yeah, so like you guys can open up LMMS, and it should look relatively similar to what mine's at, or how mine looks when you open it. I'm going to be honest, I'm used to using FL Studio, and I've messed around with LMMS a little bit in order to understand how it works for the workshop, but I'm probably going to get things wrong. So, and I know Alberto uses LMMS more than I do and is more skilled in knowing how it works. So,
yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah, so feel free to correct me if I'm wrong or answer a question if I'm stumbling.
I'm probably going to learn something too.
Okay, that's good.
Just because I don't know the music theory part of it.
Yeah, that's right. All right, so, and then if anyone, oh, that's good too. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna try to look at chat, but if a question comes up and then I don't respond, if an officer can just interrupt me by asking the question, that'd be very helpful. Okay, so we have LMMS, which stands for, it's like Linux Multimedia Studio, which is because it was initially made for Linux, but then they kind of made it adaptable for Windows and Mac. So now Linux is just part of the name, but not necessarily the only thing it's functional on. And it's a DAW, which stands for Digital Audio Workstation, which is basically software that allows you to record and modify audio, as well as like play digital instruments. At least that's what my definition is. And LMMS is a free one. That's very good and very similar to a lot of other digital audio workstations. So the first thing from this point is we can just close all of these windows that show up. Closing something in LMMS doesn't necessarily, it's kind of the same as minimizing. So if you close it, these buttons, can you guys see my mouse? I hope so.
Yes.
Okay, so these buttons here open up and close all of the different windows. So you can click all of them, get overwhelmed, and then click them all again, and they'll all not disappear, I guess. But yeah, so those are the windows that we'll be using. This row up above it has like create new project from template, open project, recently open project, saving, exporting, and then this info button, which is really cool. So if you click on that, you can click on most things and it'll bring up a little window that tells you what that does. So yeah, so in this case, this is the project notes window. So there's like a text editor in LMMS, which is pretty weird, but it has a lot of functions, which is also kind of surprising. So that's pretty neat. Yeah. So the first things that we're going to do is just a little bit of setup stuff. So if you go to edit and then into settings, in this general settings, we're going to turn on enable note labels and piano roll so that we can see what notes we'll be playing on the piano. And then language, you can change that if a language other than American English would work better for you. And then there's some other settings, these other tabs, but the only other one is this directories. Hold on, let me check chat real quick. Okay. Yeah, so in the directories, this will show like the working directory. So anything you save is going to be put into this folder. Gig directory, not really sure what that is. I think that's something with like MIDI instruments or something. Alberto doesn't know. Don't think it's that important. This one though, the SF2 directory, the file that you downloaded, this is where you're going to want to put it. So you can click on here and put it in this folder. When I did it from here, it was a little weird because I put the file in and then it would disappear and look like this, where it says no items match your search. But then if you go to the same directory outside of LMMS, it's still there. I'm not so sure why that is, but I'd recommend
But
checking to be sure.
you can save the files wherever you want, and the sound font
Oh yeah,
file,
that's
you
true.
can open it wherever it is.
Yeah, all of these directories can be changed. So you could change this to be in the music folder of your computer or wherever you have the file that's downloaded. And you don't, if you haven't downloaded it and it's still downloading, we're not going to be using it straight away. So you can have it still downloading and then put it in, and then have it in the directory at some point.
If I could just hop in, does everybody
Yeah.
have the sound font file or have access to it? Or is there anyone that doesn't? Okay. Cool. It seems like everybody has it.
So underneath that is the VST plugin directory. That's for, I'll go into the difference between like SF2s and VSTs, but it's similar like digital instruments. That's typically like its own software, and you put it in that folder or redirect this folder to wherever yours would be so that you can use those in LMMS. And then there's a themes directory because there's themes and background art, which is pretty cool. Yeah. There's auto-saving and performance settings, which I think might be on by default, but if not, you can turn that on. Saving is important. And then it says you can restart if you need to, but for the most part, I don't think any of the changes that we made require a restart unless you change the directory. So.
Bailey, can I make like a verbal note?
Yes.
For later. So for people who are using this on a Mac, one, if you want to find the thing for the piano roll, you have to go under View. And then two, if you want to find the directory, you have to click the Apple icon and then go into Preferences, and that'll get you to the setup LMS. That's just for people on Mac.
I hope that's the only difference between it, or God. Between like Mac and Windows.
I don't know. So
we will see. All right. Looking at my like teleprompter thing. So the way this workshop's going to go is I'm going to kind of tell you guys how to use LMMS, at least to the best of my abilities, and I guess Alberto's as well. But I'm going to try to focus on more of the like thoughts and at least my thinking behind making music, because I think you can figure out if you figure out how LMMS works, then you can figure out how most digital audio workstations work. It's very similar to a whole bunch of other ones, especially like paid ones. But even if you know how to use a saw and like a hammer and nails, you could still like not make a great shelf. And I think that knowing how to make a good shelf aids more than knowing how to use the tools to do it. So I don't have a good transition, but so the first thing, the Soundfonts versus VSTs. Soundfont is like the SF2 file that I had you guys download, and what a Soundfont is, it's a sample-based kind of digital instrument that uses MIDI to play notes, and even though the one that I had you guys download doesn't look like it, they're typically really small in file size. The one that you guys got has a whole bunch of instruments, so that's why the file size is larger. But then the caveat that comes with that is that the quality is typically not as high. It's still good. It's good for like chip tunes and like old school sounds. And it's not bad by any means. And the way that those work is through a sound font player that's in LMMS and most digital audio workstations. A VST is similar, but it kind of tries to replicate the sounds of an actual instrument, typically by using its own software that you would download. And then they're also higher in file size. And with that, it's also better sounding. It sounds more realistic. But because of that, a lot of the good ones tend to cost money. But that's another thing if you want realistic sounding instruments without having to like buy a piano or something, then that's what you would look into. And we're not going to go over how to put those into LMMS, but if we have time afterwards, or if there's enough interest, I might try to record something about that for this video when it goes on YouTube. But for now, we're going to focus on the sound fonts because it's more simple. And then it's also something where, because they're so small and there's so many of them, you can find a sound font for almost any instrument you would need. So what we're going to do is if we click this first, no, actually, hold on, I should probably go through what all these side icons are. So so click the song editor anyway, which is this first one. So this is like the timeline of the entire of the song. So each one of these little channels will be a different instrument or audio track or automation track. And then when you play the song, it's going to be playing through all of them at the same time. And then if we click this instrument plugins thing, these are all of the instruments, the plugins, instrument plugins that come with LMMS. So there's like an audio file processor, Bit Invader, Freeboy, Gig Player. That's what Gig is. And then like an SF2 player, which is what we'll use for the sound fonts. But there's a lot that comes with it, and there's a lot that sounds good, and there's a lot that kind of sounds okay. So if you wanted to put one of these instruments in the song editor, you can just click and drag it in, and it'll make a new track for it. And then if you want to delete some, you can click on the gear and do remove this track. I will delete those, and I'm just going to delete it down to the Bit Invader that I picked. But you can pick any of the instruments. Some of them, or I'd recommend like Bit Invader or mallets, because some of them I'm not entirely sure how they work, but I think Bit Invader or like mallets would work well for the like the starting out stuff. So on this on the track, you can click. Let me add another one real quick just to show this off. But if you click these dots, you can move around the order. So you can move it. So instead of so you can swap some around. You can click on the gear and you can clone it. So you can have 2 Bit Invaders. You can clear the track. You could do an FX channel, which I'll go into in a little bit, and a MIDI, which is if you have a MIDI controller, you'd have it go through there so that you could play that track on. You could play that track with like a keyboard connected to your computer. These 2 buttons next to it, the one on the left mutes it. So I'm gonna throw in a sound real quick. So if that's off, you go to play it, it won't play anything on that track, as opposed to if it's on. And then this other one is a solo thing. So if you have multiple and you just want this one to play, instead of having to go through and mute every single one, you can hit the solo one and it will play just that and mute everything else until you click it again. Next, there's the plugin itself, which is like the Bit Invader or Freeboy. If you click on that, oh, my throat is dry. If you click on that, it'll pull up the plugin menu, which will show you a whole bunch of settings like the volume of the instrument, pan, which is if you're wearing headphones, you can change like which ear it comes in and out. So it's on the left, and then there it's on the right. And then for all the dials and stuff, you can double click on it and you could put in a number. So if you want it to be like exactly 7, you could just put in 7 or 0. And then the volume and pan dials are the same here. So if you change one of them, it'll change the same one in that in the plugin setting. There's the FX again, which I'll get to later. And then most of them have a little keyboard at the bottom, so you can see what different notes sound like. Have I lost anybody? I feel like I might have, so please let me know if you are lost or if you're not. Check. Cool. Okay. So I'm not entirely sure how Bit Invader works, but it looks like you can change all the different plugins have different like settings you can mess with. Bit Invader has this kind of sine wave, I think. And you can change it to different kinds and it will come up with different sounds. Turn that down. I don't know how loud it is for you guys, but it sounds a little loud to me, so I'll mess with that.
I don't think we can actually hear much of your end.
Oh, But
it's just a quick blurb. These are just different sort of waveforms, because historically there was only ever waveforms and sine and wave oscillators, and that's like how originally digital music was made, or computer music was made.
Huh. Yeah, I'm assuming that's what this is. It's supposed to replicate that in some way. A lot of the stuff in LMMS, or like initially in LMMS, are like sine waves, and can't think of any other waves off the top of my head, but stuff like that. And then also in here, there's more settings, so you can mess with it more, you can tweak all of these, which I'd highly recommend doing and just seeing how the sound changes. And you don't have to, and if you really get into messing with music, you could look up like what the Bit Invader plugin settings do and such. And then if you double click on that, then you can rename it. So we can name this like Bit Lead or whatever it's going to be. If you have multiple Bit Invaders, you can rename them so you can tell them apart. This little square, you can click on that and it'll give you test audio of what it, I think like the bass note would sound like. And yeah. So let me get rid of that. So the way that you have music play is in the track the track list. So when you're playing the song, it's going through the timeline and playing the instruments as it goes through. So to make a pattern, which is a list of notes it'll play, you can click somewhere in the track to place like this gray square. And then if you do the middle mouse click, or I need to check again. I think it's the shift right click if you don't have a mouse, or if you don't have a middle mouse click, it'll get rid of it. So then from there you can right click, and then there's a whole bunch of different settings for it, but the one that we're going to focus on right now is open in piano roll. So what this is going to do is open up a new window, which you can move and rescale if you want to, which I recommend. And this is going to be where most of the where the music making is going to be happening. So the way that making music in the piano roll works is you can click somewhere and it'll place down a note, and then you can grab the end and make it as long or as short as you want to. And the pattern that you make will modify based on where the notes are and how far they go. And then as you move them around, I still don't know if you guys can hear, but as you move it around, it'll change to that note.
We cannot hear your audio.
Oh, how about now?
Yup.
Okay.
It's pretty loud.
Okay, let me do this. I'll just do that. How about now? Is that better?
That's better on my end.
Is that too
Headphones
loud?
warning in general, but it's fine.
Okay. So as you move the note around, it'll play whatever note it's on, so you can know what it sounds like. So with that, you can kind of start to make
changing the instrument volume to make it a little quieter.
Oh yeah, I can do that. Is that better? Is the volume changing at all on your guys' end?
Just change the master volume in the master effects panel, because there's two different master volumes.
Oh.
Yeah, that one.
Is that better?
Actually, interesting. Because it's low for you, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean it's
unless,
not very high up.
Unless Zoom has a different setting for volume. Oh, that was lower. Yeah, now it's lower.
Is that good? I don't want to blow out anyone's ears.
That's fine.
I think that's pretty good.
Now it's too low.
Okay. All right, now that's fixed. We can kind of put in some notes. It doesn't really matter, at least right now, where you guys put them. You just mess around with different lengths, positions, and see how it sounds. And then to play it, you can click this play button in the piano roll, and it will loop that section without playing everything that's in the song editor.
Oh, I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
Okay, well, one, I got it to like where some things are stuck to where I can't move them, and like the top of it is stuck under the top of the menu, if you know what I'm saying.
It's top of it. Oh, so it's like this?
Or yeah, like that, but like there it's like tucked behind the top area, so I can't pull it down.
So the entire workspace can be scrolled.
Yeah.
There's scroll bars on the top, on the right side and the bottom side.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. If you move something off screen, it'll add. If you look at the bottom, it'll add a scroll bar, so then you can just scroll over to it, or in this case, scroll up to it.
Oh, okay.
Forgot to mention
and also, how do you get it to where you can add notes in the piano roll?
So once you left click somewhere,
mine's just like a blank area next to the keyboard, and it says open by double clicking on a pattern.
Yeah, I think you can also double click to open it, but if it's just like this, you can click or double click,
now.
or click and right click and open in piano roll.
Oh, okay. I think I see it now. I just had to click back in the song editor, one of the sections there now.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. All right, cool. Yeah. So for the most part, you can make something, and then you can do, there's like an erase, or you can right click to erase a specific note. You can click the eraser and like click and drag to erase stuff. Control Z works to undo what you did. And for the most part, that's like how you make music in LMMS. You can also do Control A to select everything. You can do like Control C and V, and you can copy and paste stuff.
Could I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Just kind of. So are these like 1, 2, 3, 4 up at the top row? Are those like full? What's the musical term for it?
Like a measure?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to figure out which are like quarters, which ones are eighths. I'm assuming just like one rectangle is a quarter, like one of the green rectangles. Okay.
Yeah. So
the scale is based on that Q symbol.
Yeah. So in music, there's the measures, and currently we're in 4/4, so that's 4 beats per measure, right? Hold on, no, 4 beats. I don't remember.
4 beats per measure.
Yeah,
and
4
a
beats
quarter
per
note
measure.
gets 1 beat.
Yeah. And so each one of these areas marked with 1, 2, or 3 is 4 beats, which is marked by its own little rectangle, and then quarter notes would be this. If you click on that, you can shuffle between them, or you can hit the drop down thing. Go to like 1/4, so that's going to be a quarter note. So each one of these blocks is going to be a quarter note, which if you don't know like quarter notes or half notes or whole notes, it's not really important for making music in a digital audio workstation or a DAW, because like you know that this will play through 4 beats, and those will play 4 times in the measure. But people that do know that this can help clarify that, or make it more clear where the quarter notes can be and stuff. And then I don't remember how the snapping, how to change the snapping.
It's the music note symbol. Well, your snapping is currently at what, quarter note? So you gotta change this. Yeah, the Q symbol changes your snapping.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. There we go. Okay. Yeah. Snapping's a little confusing in LMMS, but maybe that's just because I'm used to FL Studio. I don't know. So you can, let me get back to So once you have something, you can use this, which will do like a select box. You can use that to copy sections of it. And if you don't want to select everything, you can copy and paste, and place as much notes as you want. I'm gonna just a little thing real quick. So yeah. So from here, if you have this pattern and you want to have it repeat, you can hold Control and left click, and then you can click and drag that over to have it repeat. And then if you want like this third one to be different, you can just double click on it or right click and open the piano roll, and you can change it. And the thing about, or at least in LMMS, is that each one of these boxes is independent. So if you change this one and like move a couple notes up, it's only going to stay like that in this pattern. If we go to this one, we open that up in a piano roll, it's still going to be where it was the last time we did it, the last time we messed with it. You can click this to play the entire song editor. So for the most part, that's kind of how like piano roll works in LMMS. And I delete this for now because there's for stuff like percussion, or I guess first, does anyone have any questions about the piano roll or anything related to what I kind of just went over about the song editor? Take a sip of water. Copy the notes with the toolbox again. So I'll just get rid of a couple of these and move that. If you have one that's already copied, you can click and drag to move it. So with this, you hit the I guess dotted box, and then you can draw a box around what you want to move. And then what I do is I move back over to like the pen tool, and then you can click and drag where you want it to be.
You can also hold down Control to use the box tool without clicking that button.
You can hold. Oh.
The only issue, sometimes it bugs out and you get stuck in the box mode, and then you have to click the pencil draw anyway, but that's fine sometimes. Yeah.
I did not know that, but now I do.
Did you know you can right click to delete a note?
Yes.
Okay. Those are the controls that I just used. Just Control to box select, and then right click and left click.
One thing I'm noticing right now, there's this section at the bottom, note velocity, or if you click on it, note panning. So what you can do is you can change the volume per note. So if we play it right now, it's all at a consistent volume, but you can click and drag them to make some notes quieter. I'll try to go down, I don't want to blow out any ears. But you can use this to add some variety to the volume of notes in a pattern. And then you can modify the panning to make it more on the right or more on the left. And then you click click that to swap between them. And I think those are stored with the notes themselves. Yeah. So then if you copy paste and move one around, it'll keep the volumes from that section. So, yeah. Right. Okay. So let's talk about what's it called? This Beat and Bassline Editor. So if you click the second box, the one that looks like 6 squares, you'll pull up the Beat and Bassline Editor, which at its core is it's sort of like its own mini song editor.
I actually barely ever use the beat maker.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, you can do the same things with it in a piano roll, but you can also add it directly into the song editor by clicking this up here, and it'll add one into the song editor, and then we can make a pattern, and right click to open in Beat Bass Editor, or double click to open it up. So by default, it's going to have this kicker, which is supposed to sound like a bass drum. So then each of these squares, you can click to add in another hit of that bass drum. And then you can add, I think you can add like the bit invader thing that we have, or more kickers, and then add more like hits, I guess. Although with like in instruments and stuff that isn't a single hit or like single note, it can tend to be a little weird. But the main use that I've seen for this is using it for like a drum pattern. So we could add another kicker and then go into that, go into the plugin settings and mess with some of it to make it sound more like a snare, for example. So you don't necessarily have to follow along, but you can mess with like the click or noise. Gain. Yeah, so increasing the noise makes it sound more like a snare drum. And then you can double click it, maybe call it snare. And then you can make like a kind of drum line. It's a little fast, but that. And then these at the side will add more squares. So then we can have it continue a little more. Maybe add a little variation at the end of it. And yeah, and it works the same as like the pattern. I think you can hold Control and drag it, have that copy. But one thing with the Beat/Bassline is you can extend it. And the thing about it is that if it extends past the total length, which currently is this, it'll just loop it. Just keep looping that section through there. Yeah. So yeah, in short, the Beat/Bassline thing is it's mostly used for like percussion or like drums or something where you want a rhythm. And it's kind of just like a dumbed down version of the piano roll. So getting kind of close to 8. So I want to try to get through all of the LMMS stuff before then, and we can take a little bit of a break and then talk about like some music theory, or like at least how I go about trying to make music for stuff. So I think the main kind of last thing is an automation track. So, which works similarly to a piano roll, where you can open it up in the automation editor. And I'm not, maybe, I don't know, Alberto, how much you know about the automation editor.
I know some of it.
Okay.
Yep. You want me to explain it?
Yeah.
Okay, so automation tracks let you control individual knobs for any of the instruments. Like if you want to have something fade in, you'd use an automation track, because then when you export it, that'll be exported, because otherwise you'd have to do it manually, like as you're playing. But the automation track lets you do that. So you create one, so you got one there. You can click on the screen there to put, well, okay, the first thing actually is associate a control with the automation track. And to do that, you hold down the control key over the knob you want to associate with it, and you drag, hold control, click and drag the knob onto the automation track. So now you've so Bailey's associated the panning knob with the automation track. So now you see that the scale changed from like 0 to 1. Now it's negative 100 to 100, which corresponds to what the panning button or the panning knob has. So now you can click on there to put a node, and then the nodes, I wish there was a way to snap it, but I don't, as far as I know, there isn't. I don't know, Joshua, you know, if you can snap it. So what I do is I just like zoom in a lot and then like get it close enough. But it snaps to the notes, to the measures at least. Then you can change.
If you hold control and use the scroll wheel, you can zoom in and out.
Yeah. Then you can change the interpolation type. So typically I just use linear, but there's also the curvy one. So if you just want something to fade in, you drag and drop the volume into the automation track, and then just put 2 nodes, one at the beginning for your start volume, and then one where you want the end volume to be changed to linear interpolate, and then it'll just control the volume from A to B. Since he put panning, he can make it oscillate between like the left and right side in tone with the music, just by having 2 nodes and using the curvy linear interpolator to automatically curve between them. Or you could use the linear one too.
I don't think what I'm doing is particularly graceful looking, but
and the cool thing is you can use any knob from anywhere, as long as it's like one of those green ones.
So
like if you open up the instrument, you can even hold control on that one and put it in the automation. And you can put multiple controls on a single automation track. I usually drag it onto the song editor one. I don't know if that's any different, but you can check. Yeah, you can check what's associated with it by right-clicking on it, I think, in the song track, in the song.
Or this. Oops.
Yeah, 3 connections. Oh, yeah. So it's got the connections there, and you can disconnect them if you accidentally put the wrong one there. And yeah, I use it mostly just for fading in and out, but sometimes I could use it for an effect that I want to like oscillate with in time with the beat. And the same thing applies for copying a song editor track. You can just hold control to duplicate that one line. So you don't have to do it like for you don't have to make a million notes. You can just make 2 of them and just like duplicate it over and over again.
So in this, what I'm doing is I connected it to the pan dial. So what it will do is it will gradually move it over to, in this case, like 75. Or I guess I could just play it.
Yeah, there you go.
See, that's moving.
It stopped halfway because on the song editor, it's only 1 bar, or one bar. So you want to move it out on the song editor because you can track out the length of it. So to fill up the space. Yep. There you go. Sometimes they get disconnected. I'm not sure why. It's probably just a bug, but you can just reconnect it. the only other caveat is even though even if the song progresses past the block within the automation track in Song Editor, it'll still override if you're trying to manually adjust it mid-song. So like, since I use it for volume control, if I pause it and it's very low volume and I want to raise the volume to see what it sounds like, it won't let me do that. I have to disconnect the automation track. But you can also just mute the track in the Song Editor, and that works too. Yeah, and so like right now you can't control the panning because it's under control of the automation track. But if you mute it, then you should be able to control it again. Yeah. But then if you unmute it, it'll override it again.
Yeah. All right. There's I think for the most part, that's almost everything. There's the mixer, which I'll go into after we take a bit of a break. And then I'll talk about stuff up here too. But since it's almost 8, I think what I'll have us do is do like I don't know, I'd call it an icebreaker, but since we've been here for an hour, I guess it's not really an icebreaker, but more of just I guess a break. I don't know. So I guess it's for the bragging rights thing. Yeah. So there's a lot of video games. There's a lot of video game scores. And so that you guys can like hear more composers and such, I was thinking that you and I guess your breakout rooms could try to come up with as many composers that have made music for a video game as you can. So I guess like the rules are that the composer has to, as long as someone has made music for a game, then it's fair game. But you can't say like, what is it, AC/DC, because Back in Black's in Guitar Hero, because Back in Black wasn't made for Guitar Hero. But if they made the theme song for Guitar Hero for whatever reason, then that would work. I don't know. I'm interested in hearing like what if you guys know any video game composers, and if not, then what other people in your group know. So I guess I'll try. Someone needs to be on top of that. That's me. That's the joke. So yeah. So the mixer. I need to change the volumes of things again so I don't hurt ears. Is that good? Is that not too loud?
It's fine.
All right. Cool. So I'm going to just throw a little thing together. So the mixer, if we pull that up, what the mixer does is you can add effects to all of the tracks as a whole, or to an individual track itself. So if we pull up the mixer, you can see that there's this master, which is the volume for everything. So if let me add another instrument in here. Just do something real quick so that you can see the difference. If I play this, you'll see in the master you can see it's showing the volume of the whole thing. And then if we click this plus, it'll add an FX track. And so it's marked with a 1. So if we go over here to the gear, this FX that I kind of brushed over before, you can see that FX1 is one we can swap it to, or we can make a new FX channel for it. So I'm going to set this to the FX1. So now if we play this, the audio coming from this track is going to come up on this, and the audio from all of the others, which in this case is just the mallets, is going to show up in the master. I don't know how clear that is, considering how similar they are, but it should make it more clear that it should, yeah, hopefully you can tell that it's coming from 2 different points. So that's cool, but what's the point of having it so you can, yeah, at the moment, all that does is visually shows the different volumes for both of these tracks. That's where like effects come in. So there's the effects chain, and we can add an effect from this very, very, very long list of effects that I'm going to be frankly honest, I don't know what half of them do, and I don't think I can do half of them justice and make them sound good. So I'm going to let's see if there's a reverb one. So up here, there's a search bar, so you could look up reverb, for example. And this one's from LMMS. Now we can add that in to this mixer. And you'll notice if we select the master one, there's no effects there, FX1. There's the reverb effect we selected. So now what should happen if we play, let me do a solo on this one. If we play it, there should be some reverb. That sounds very good. Yeah, so now, and then even if we have both playing, the triple oscillator has that reverb effect on it, but the mallets, which is at the master, doesn't have that effect. So what the mixer does is it can allow us to add effects to specific tracks, and you can also, if we take this and we make another track for the mallets, we could give it its own effect, or we can change the volumes of the tracks themselves. So everything in this first mixer, we could lower the volume and then up the volume of the mallets. And basically the mixer is very good for doing effects. And the effects you can apply to apply the piano roll if you use the beat map. What's it called again? Beat+Bassline Editor. You can also put that into a mixing track. I don't know what these are called, but you can put it into that and also give it reverb or something else. In LMMS, if you have an audio sample, so you can click this and then you can put in an audio sample. And this one actually comes with effects built in, but you could put, like, if you have a recording of something, you could put that in. Yeah, you can put that in and use that kind of like a pattern and move it around, copy and duplicate it. But samples are the only things that can't be mixed in the mixer. You can't add an effect to a sample and have it in its own separate track, but you can use this effects chain, which is basically the same thing. So I guess it's not that big of an issue. But I know in some stuff, I know in FL Studio it lets you do effects on all of them with this mixer. So then I think the last thing, what is that? Last thing is kind of the stuff up here, which I kind of forgot about, if I'm being honest. We have the tempo, which is the speed. So if we play this, it's slow it down by either clicking and dragging down, or you can use the scroll wheel, or you can double click and type in a number. I'm going to lower it to 120. Actually, I'll lower it to 100 so the tempo change is more obvious. So the tempo, or like beats per minute, basically is just how fast it's going to play through this timeline. And then there's the time signature, which we kind of talked about earlier. And for the most part, you can leave it as 4/4. It just changes the amount of beats per measure in like the piano roll. So just as an example, if I change this to 3/4, you'll notice that instead of there being 4 sections before the next measure, there'll be 3 before the next measure. And you can make music that's in 3/4 instead of 4/4, or like 6/4, or like, I don't know, 2/4. But that's not really something you have to worry about for the most part. We have the master volume, so I lowered it so that it doesn't blow out anyone's ears. And then this one changes the pitch of the entire thing. So I don't know the purpose of, but it's cool. And then if you click here, it'll do a little visualizer of the audio, which is neat. You can turn it on or off. And then at these, yeah. So here, what it's showing is the minutes, seconds, and milliseconds of how long it's been playing. And then if you click any of them, it'll swap to bars, beats, and ticks. So then you can see the mallets that I had as quarter notes are lining up with each beat. And then the next measure, which is marked as a bar, and so on and so forth. And then I'm noticing stuff that I forgot to mention earlier. In this top line, there's this one, which I kind of brushed over. This is a metronome, which keeps track of this tempo and beats per minute. So if I mute everything and just click that and turn it on, if you look at the beat when I play it, it's keeping track of the beats and then also how many bars it's going. So you can use that to make sure everything's on time and you don't have a part that's going too fast or too slow. So yeah. So for the most part, that's how you do almost everything in LMMS, except the sound font you guys downloaded. But I'll go into that in this second part.
You want to mention presets?
You can mention presets because
So on the left side where you have your plugins, and then you go to the next one, it says my projects, and then you go to the next one, it says my samples. There's a ton of built-in samples. My presets, and there's a lot of built-in presets for each of the plugins. You can drag those into your song editor. And so like for Bit Invader, which is what you guys have been using, there's a bunch of presets for that already. And they come with a waveform in there for you.
So you just click and drag it onto there.
Yeah, and then some of them use the stacking or arpeggios in the instrument settings panel. Or some of them use the envelope and have a dynamic envelope. I know one of them that uses the stacking or arpeggio is which one is it? Invaders Must Die. So that one just does a very fast arpeggio with the octaves.
Where was that one?
The Invader. And then Invaders Must Die.
Oh.
You can drag it anywhere into the song to make a new instrument too. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to overwrite the existing one. So if you want to sync that arpeggio with the tempo, go back into the instruments panel in the third option next to FX. And so for the cycle of the arpeggio, right click it. No,
Oh yeah.
in the time, actually, right click the time, and there's a custom at the bottom. Custom, you can sync it to a specific note based on what your current tempo is. And you have to update that whenever you change the tempo because it doesn't automatically update. Yeah, there's a bunch of cool presets for all the instruments or all the plugins. I rarely make my own. I just use the presets and then tweak them to what I need. It's good to know that they're there. And you can make your own presets too by clicking the giant save button inside the instrument panel, and then it'll ask you just where you want to save it, and it'll show up when you refresh it on the left side.
So I guess like if you mess with this or these things, you mess with all this, you can add effects to the plugin itself. Cool. Yeah. And then I guess from there you can save it, and then it'll be its own plugin that will be saved in here, and then you could use that in other projects. That's very nice. Cool. Right. Okay, so let's just make a new project and start from here. So, for me, whenever I'm going to make some music for like a game, or mostly just like at any point, but I guess for a game specifically, what I've noticed helps the most with making something that sounds unique and also is just fun to make is to think about the gameplay and the atmosphere of the game itself. So if you have the project doc, I know I put some examples in there, but you don't have to. I'll talk about them on my phone teleprompter. So for example, Cuphead's a good example of a game where the music's a big part of what makes it stand out. The gameplay is run and gun and like boss rush. So, and then also the atmosphere and the art is focused on 1930s cartoons. So the music reflects that in the sense that it's kind of the big band era, which was around the 1930s. And for the most part, it's jazz and accelerated tempos and just fast paced to match that run and gun and boss fight feeling. Whereas something like Minecraft, that's more laid back for the most part, focused more on exploration and discovery, isn't going to have the most like dramatic soundtrack. Well, I mean, it's kind of dramatic, but it's not going to have fight music whenever a zombie comes out at night. And so because of that, it's focused on the calming nature of it, and then also being simplistic at its base, which is a lot like the game itself. Then even like that, you can have games that are similar kind of in premise or gameplay, but still have different soundtracks. So I know I put like Cuphead and Doom are both games that are kind of focused on moving around enemy projectiles and fighting enemies. But whereas Cuphead has that like 1930s cartoon aesthetic, and thus the music reflects that, Doom does not take place in a cartoon, it takes place in hell. So the music's going to reflect that in the kind of satanic feeling that it gives, and also with the music being just kind of off the walls in terms of like tempo and control and stuff. And it helps to add on to the atmosphere and the gameplay that the game already presents. So, for example, one of the games that I made music for was called Meme Messenger, which was basically it's like you'd send memes to people in your contacts, and in a kind of like rock paper scissors format, different kinds of memes were stronger than others, and it was a little bit like Pokemon in the sense of like type advantages. So, when thinking about the music for that, one thing I looked at the Pokemon games for kind of like how the battle music is. It's kind of fast paced, and then also just like fast paced music that I like. But then I really wanted to focus also on that kind of unique atmosphere of the fact that it's you're texting people, that's where the combat is. So what I did was I took ringtones and alarms from like the iPhone and like Android devices and tried to somehow incorporate that into the music itself so that it felt like the music wasn't made and then put into the game, but it was made for the game. And I think that's something that really makes soundtracks stand out. And then also it's just something that's fun to work with because like being limited by this ringtone sounds like this and it's in this tempo or it's at this weird time signature makes it so that you can't do maybe everything you want to do. So you have to figure out what you can do. And limitations for anyone that's done a game jam, they know limitations tend to come up with really interesting ideas that may not be great, but they're definitely something that's unique that they might have not come up with before. So, I guess let's like, I don't know, I'm going to kind of go about this as if I'm making a song for a game. So I guess if anyone has a suggestion of something that they'd want, like, I guess, I don't know.
Do one for Global Game Jam where the theme's Lost and Found.
Oh, okay. All right. I think I figured out why LMMS has project notes. All right, so Lost and Found sounds so Lost and Found. Well, at least for me, off the top of my head, when I think of Lost and Found, I'm thinking more of the lost aspect, where it's probably kind of quiet, and maybe that reverb thing that I found and messed with, it kind of had this kind of echoing feel, which I don't know. I know someone mentioned it kind of sounded like space, but to me, it also kind of sounds like it's spreading out. All right, Jacob. Yeah. The recording will be on YouTube at some point so you can watch the rest of it. But thanks for joining, yeah. So for me at least, I'm thinking with Lost and Found, I want to do some of that reverb. And then maybe something quiet too, to kind of focus on that lost thing. I'm not sure about Found. I don't know if anyone has any ideas for what that could, anything for that you could shout it out.
Chest. Zelda chest.
Oh, that's true.
Or if you want to go more in your direction, you're talking about Lost. Found could not necessarily be a good thing.
Oh, that's true.
Someone found you. Uh-oh.
It's like the Metal Gear Solid, like boom. Oh.
I guess in this hypothetical, there's not really gameplay established, but I guess we can work around that. I'm guessing if we focus more on the lost aspect, then I guess the gameplay could kind of be along that same method of stealthy, or maybe like trying to avoid getting seen, or staying lost and not getting found. I feel like I'm giving out a what's it called? I don't know. Yeah, all right, so with that, we could start making something. So all right, let's go through the SF2 player so we can play the stuff from the sound font that you guys downloaded. So if we go into it here, there's a file with a folder. If you click that, it should pull up that directory, and the Beatbox sound font should be there, and you can open it. And then from there in the patch, you can click on that wrench, and then it'll pull up all of the sounds that are in it. So here there's 127 in this bank, and there's multiple banks, some with a lot of stuff and some with not too much stuff. So we have a lot of instruments we could work with. So let's leave the grand piano on this one. I guess we can rename it to piano. So when we start getting a lot of sound fonts, we don't get them confused. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about music theory, like really briefly, because I don't know a lot about music theory, but for the most part, the way music works is that there's notes, there's scales, and chords, like the basics. All of these squares that we throw down are notes, which are just like, don't need the metronome, are just individual, notes that are being played. A chord is a little bit more complex, but not too much more complex, and it's just multiple notes being played at the same time. And then a scale is basically a guide to what notes sound good when played together. So one way that you can do that in LMMS is up here, where it has these like steps. In a no scale, you can click here, and there's a whole bunch of different scales, but the ones that I kind of focus on are major, then down here, minor. So in Western culture, major scales are associated with happiness and like positive, whereas minor scales are focused on sad and aggressive. But I know in other places in the world, sometimes it's like a minor scale can be associated with positivity and vice versa. But for the most part, if you want something that sounds happy, you have it in a major scale. If you want something that sounds sad, you do it in a minor scale. So if we're going for some kind of spooky stay lost and not get found vibe, I think a minor scale would work well. So what's nice about this is that from here, if we click to put a note at C, it does not. It's like, maybe I'm wrong. I might be wrong, but well, what I thought that would do is it would put every note, at least in FL Studio, there's a way where you can set a scale, and then if you play a note, it'll put all the notes in that scale down. So, let's try something different then. So, C scale, C major scale, is pretty simple. So every single of these bottom notes, the white notes, from a C to another C, are all in the C major scale. So it's in the major scale, it's not necessarily in the minor scale, and I could look up what the C minor scale is, but I think it might be, I don't know. I should know what the minor scale is off the top of my head, but I guess we could wing it. Let's just wing it. That's the best way to go about it. So we're going to do the C minor scale, and I guess we'll just figure it out as we go. So for me, one of the things that I like to start with is what the melody is going to be. So if we had the C minor, hold on, I'm going to look up the C minor scale because I don't think winging it's a great idea. All right, so C minor is C, D, E flat, which, quick music note, sharps and flats go up by half a note. So for example, G sharp is going to be up half a note, this, whereas G flat is going to be down half a note, this. You're probably wondering, okay, well, if this is G flat, then what's F sharp? F sharp is G flat. So they're interchangeable, and depending on what scale you're in, they might be a different name, but they're the same thing. So E flat, and then F, G, A flat, and B flat. And that is the C minor scale. So we can use this as sort of a guide for where all of our notes should be in order to fit the C minor scale. So from there, we can maybe jump over here and try to make some melody that sounds a little spooky, maybe a little, I guess we could do that Zelda chess thing, because if I remember exactly what it is that I forgot who suggested it, but maybe Alberto, but it's the da 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 da. I think that's what he's, yeah. We could do something where it kind of has that build up, but maybe it takes longer to do, because that sounds a little spooky. Slowing stuff down sounds spooky. So we can mess with that a bit.
Bailey, do you mind if I jump in to put a little note?
Yeah, that's fine.
Regarding the scales and the chords, it's a little bit different from LF, I believe you use. You basically have to right-click the note, the key on the virtual keyboard, and it'll tell you to if you have a scale or a chord selected, it'll tell you to mark a scale, mark a chord. You have to actually hit the C5, not the yeah.
So if I do so.
Yeah, that.
Oh, mark current scale. Oh, that is so much better. Okay, so I guess to repeat that, if you go here and you select minor, then what you do is you right click on the piano, and you can do mark current scale. And then all of these squares that are kind of grayed out are ones that fit on that minor scale. So we don't necessarily even need this, and we can start for the most part from anything. So we could do C minor, which is just every note from C to shining C, or we could do D minor, which is just every note between D and the next D. And yeah, that's very good. Thank you, Joseph. So let's stick with the C since we were doing that. And so we can do something that maybe goes up slowly. We can mess with the velocity to make it so there's some variation into it. Maybe start off quiet and then make it go a little louder. Oops, there. that sounds. One thing that I like to do is set it up in terms of like 4, which I don't, I'm going to be honest, I said it and I don't know what it means, but what I'll do is have the same thing repeat 4 times, but then on the last time, throw in some small variation. So like maybe instead of it going up, it goes back down. So then by the time, when you're listening to it, by the time we get to this last section, you think you know where it's going, and then it changes, and then you're thrown for a loop, and then it loops. So let's see if there's any. Oh, it's just more notes. Another thing I like to do is octaves. So like in the C scale, there's multiple of each note. So like there's multiple C's, multiple D's, and so on. So what I like to do is sometimes take whatever I have and duplicate it, but then move it to like an octave lower, and then maybe change the volume of the whole thing. If you hold Control and scroll while in the note velocity, it'll increase the volume. You can increase and decrease the volume of everything you selected. So I'll make this lower section a little lower in volume. So one thing we can do from here, I think this melody kind of thing is good as it is. Let's put in another sound font thing. See if we can get some chords in to kind of make it sound more full. So I guess we could do pipe organ. Pipe organ is do I have to explain a pipe organ? But it's like a, I'll just play it. It's the vampire sound. So what we can do here is do chords. So there's different chord progressions you can do, and in the project document at the very bottom, I have figure 1, which has a list of chord progressions, and as well as a like chord chart. So you can see, for example, if you look at that chord chart, you can see there's 2, like the Roman numeral 2. And then there's 2 arrows that go to like 3 or 5. So what you can do is pick from that chord progression thing, one of the minor 2, if that makes sense, and then go to either a 5 or a 3. So, and then if you go down to 1, you just kind of repeat. So let's go, for an example, let's start with that 5. So if you look at the chart, you can pick a major of like E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, or D. So I'm gonna pick a major C. So what we can do for that is next to the scale, if you click on a new chord drop down, you can pick, what's it called? I already forgot. You can pick a chord, that's what it's called. And there's a whole bunch of chords as well, but you can focus on majors. The ones that I focus on are major, minor, and then like sometimes a 7, which is just a major but with an extra note. So let's do I'm going to do the major C. So I'll select a major. And then hopefully this is actually what I think it's going to be. Yeah. and then I click C and it'll put the major chord at that C. And I think from that point, anywhere that I select, it'll slap down the major version of that note. So I have the major C, which might sound good. Now, let's see if it sounds good with what we have so far. Oh, that's very high up. If you hit Control and then the down arrow while you're in a piano roll, you can change the octave of everything there. Or you can also select it and then do Control up and down to change the octave of what you have selected. So I'm going to move that a little lower. I also noticed that the velocity is still really low. So I'll raise that up a little bit. That's too high. Maybe we should just increase the volume of this whole track a little bit. All right, so we have that first chord. You could continue to follow the progression like cheat sheet. But typically what I do is once I usually start with like a major or minor, and then I do one that has these same two bottom notes. So actually, hold on, have I lost anybody? Oh no, that's good. Lots of good resources though, that's good. So I think, this is kind of guessing and checking, but I think after the major chord, we can do a minor chord. And if we position it, the top two notes of that chord will be the same as the bottom two notes of the first one. If we play just this pattern, I'm going to increase the volume a little bit. They progress between each other pretty well. And typically the way that, at least when I'm doing a chord progression, I kind of just do, if the first one's major, the next one will be, I'll try to make it minor, and then the next one, I'll try to make it major. And there's a music theory way to do it where everything is like calculated like the chord progression chart, but then there's also the this sounds good method where you can go that sounds good and keep it. So with most things in most creative things, there's the rules and then the if it works, it works. So I'm going to just leave it at this for the sake of brevity. Oh wait, we're at 9 minutes. Ooh, or at 9 o'clock. Maybe I should be wrapping it up. I should probably do that. Okay. I kind of did cover everything, but I got carried away, I think. Yeah, so let's just listen to what we kind of have so far. So even though the things are in the same key and minor, major, minor, the chords don't really fit with the melody. And sometimes that happens, and I think it might be because we made the melody and then tried to make the chords. But for the most part, I think he just kind of, or yeah, maybe doing the chords first and then the melody. Sometimes it depends. Sometimes it works, and sometimes you need to mess with the melody some more. But I think I should really just wrap it up. Sorry that took. Sorry if I don't know. I don't feel like I got a lot done in that point during that hour. It went by fast. Yeah, but I guess I'll do like closing stuff. So hopefully whatever you were able to make, even if it's probably not a full song, but hopefully you save that and keep working on it and keep messing with it and tear it apart and put it back together and stuff, and just keep seeing like what works and what doesn't work, because that's half of it. You know how to use LMMS, you kind of know how like the notes work and stuff, and you can put stuff together in order to make it sound better or not, and look up stuff. If you don't know why something's not sounding good, look up how to make chords sound good together, how to make a melody that sounds good. There's lots of stuff out there. I know I put a lot in that document of resources and like YouTube channels to watch or to look at and stuff. And then I guess like one last thing is that whatever, and this kind of applies to like any creative thing you do, regardless of what you want to make, whether it's like orchestral music or electric music, or if you just want to make, I don't know, even like in a video game, if you want to make a game that you don't know if people are going to necessarily want to play, there's someone that wants to play it. There's someone that wants to play your game, that wants to hear your music, that wants to listen to your story that you want to tell or whatever. Because there's you who wants to make that for people. And so there's going to be someone like you that wants to listen to it or play it or read it or watch it. So yeah, just if you enjoy what you do, there's going to be someone that wants to hear you enjoying it and wants to reap the benefits of that enjoyment. So yeah, if you want to keep doing music, then just keep looking into it, and same with those things. And I don't think I should have anything else because it's 9:05. I can't count. Yeah. All right. Yeah. That's my TED Talk. It's been a long day.
Thank you, Bailey.
You're welcome.
That was cool.
Good.
Music is crazy.
And say
Music is
certifiably
crazy.
I've learned things today, and that is an improvement over yesterday.
It's true though.
Cool. Yeah. You guys can leave
Bye.
if you want to. I'm sorry for holding everyone past 5 minutes.
No, it's fine.
How dare you?
No one's allowed to leave.
It was 8:20
Also,
and
you're
then I
still
was
recording. Do you want to start recording now?
yeah, sure. I'll start